Welcome to the show, guys. We are talking about starts and sits for fantasy football. Can you believe it? Week 6. On the show, we got the great and powerful Jim, a.k.a. the Maverick. What's going on, Jim?
Hey there, counselor. Just suffering through another fantasy football season.
It's been a rough one, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to give you all the optimal starts and the guys that have rougher matchups this week, along with the latest news. This is the complete episode to get you fully prepped for fantasy football week 6. And I got to say, man, it has been rough across the board. I've been very fortunate not to deal with a lot of injuries. And a lot of people, though, are struggling. We were just talking about this off the air before we started. It's like, man, oh man, that first round, it's been like from Bijan lack of performance to CMC getting hurt to Breece Hall and Tyreek Hill with the bad quarterback. It's been an absolute disaster, especially in those early rounds, Jim. It's been a wild year, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's rough. I mean, A.J. Brown, he hasn't played in a couple weeks. Jonathan Taylor, he's been out. Garrett Wilson, I think he had a good week this past week, but he has not been good this season at all. And Robert Saleh just got fired. That was big news. I don't know if you talked about that.
No, I haven't talked about it. We're going to get to latest news.
I have said that the Jets are cursed, and they are cursed, man. They are.
Yeah, I mean, some people are saying like, let's just get right to the latest news and notes. So we'll start with Breaking Brat. We can't just talk about the news without having Breaking Brat introduce it. But before we even do that, make sure you guys hit the thumbs up, smash it, tap it, slap it, hit the thumbs up, and drop a starts and sits question below. We'll try to get to as many as we possibly can. So hit the thumbs up and turn on that bell for breaking news, #1 fantasy football podcast. Hit the thumbs up and turn on the bell. Let's get to it and drop your question. But let's just get right to the latest news and notes here. Where are you?
We now have breaking news.
Yeah, but Robert Saleh being gone. So a lot of people are saying that the reason being is because, Aaron Rodgers had his hand in that. And there was that one video where like Rodgers is coming in for a hug, or Saleh wants a hug, and like Rodgers is like, nah, I'm going to push you off. So maybe there was some tension there, Jim. I don't know. What do you think? Tension, Rodgers had a hand in this, or what?
I've heard there's been a lot of problems, a lot of toxicity in the locker room and stuff, and maybe it was Saleh, I think that we're going to see a revitalized Jets team now. I think it's kind of like a weight off their shoulders, and so we'll see if they're able to do it. They got a big game this week against Buffalo, so a big divisional game. We'll see how it plays out.
Other things I want to talk about here in the latest news and notes, nothing really crazy here. Derek Carr, his oblique was bothering him. Apparently he had I think a test on that, and he's going to miss multiple games. It's going to affect Rashid Shaheed, who's got a good matchup this week, and Olave a little bit potentially, or it could help him. You never know. What else is there we really want to talk about here? Russell Wilson's calf is expected to be a full-time participant, but I still think they're rolling Fields. What else we got here? Jaylen Warren is not expected to play in week 6. David Njoku, his knee is giving him an issue there as well. I don't know if he's even playing. He left week 5, so I don't think he's going to be playing. He's got an ankle sprain, Njoku issues.
Yeah, that's a separate issue than what he was dealing with. I believe he was dealing with a hamstring earlier, and so he missed a bunch of games because of that. So not good news there at all for Njoku. So
Rashee Rice, apparently with his knee, he underwent surgery to repair the damage to his lateral. So it's an LCL on Tuesday, October 8th. While timetable for his return has not yet been announced, Rice only suffered damage to LCL and no other ligaments. So I think it still might be his season's pretty much done, I would say.
I think his season is done. They're saying like a 4-month recovery for this. So he's someone who might be able to come back for the playoffs, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that sounds kind of questionable there, but I think he's a drop in all fantasy football formats right now. He's not going to have any value going forward, and then he's going to get suspended. So we're probably not going to see him until 2026. That's my guess.
Yeah, he's pretty much toast. A lot of people ask about Aaron Jones with his hip. It's still undergoing evaluations on his week 5 hip injury, but it's all good.
They're calling him week to week.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's going to play this week. So Ty Chandler, probably want to fire him up. So
yeah, and then we've got Joe Mixon. I don't think he's playing either. He's not looking good for week 6. He's not sure for coming back for week 6. Man, what a bust that guy is. I mean, that's another reason why I avoid him. I mean, he's kind of an older back, years to wow us. He's never been outstanding. Great situation. I just never trusted Mixon, and sure enough, we're seeing that now.
Yeah, he looked so good week 1. Remember that? He had like
Yeah.
30 carries or something and was just a monster. And I think that was it. I think he played a little bit of week 2, and we haven't seen him since. So
Injuries tend to set in. So that's it for latest news and notes here. I mean, drop a question below if you have anything. Again, stay on top of it. I will do another episode with last minute news and notes. And if you're not following on social, I do a video recap on the reels on my Insta, Fantasy Football Counselor, my story mode. So go turn on notifications there. Thank you, Breaking Brad. Breaking Brad, anything else you want to say to us about breaking news?
We now have breaking news.
Oh, he's a man of few words, that guy. A man of few words, Jim. All right, so let's go. You guys know I like to pull up the visual here for the optimal matchups. We'll start off with the quarterback position. So I'm going to list off all the optimal plays at quarterback. And again, it's up to you guys to make the executive decisions. Just because your quarterback, for example, Josh Allen, has a bad matchup this week, doesn't necessarily mean you have to sit him. But if you do have a better and more attractive player in a good matchup, you may want to consider him. So this is really going to help you with your start and sits decision. So let's rip through it now. If you're in the car, I will be going off on this verbally. If you want the visual, you go to YouTube as well to see the visual we've got here pulled up. So going through this, Jim, we've got Caleb Williams versus Jacksonville. Will Levis, very hard to trust, but he does have a good matchup versus Indy. Daniel Jones versus Cincy. Jane Daniels, who's been pretty hot, versus Baltimore. All good matchups. Andy Dalton, who's had a mediocre week last week. The past 2 weeks prior were decent, but Andy Dalton versus Atlanta, favorable. Kirk Cousins versus Carolina, coming off a hot week. Another good matchup for him. Fire him up. Kirk Cousins versus Carolina, Lamar Jackson versus Washington, Jordan Love versus Arizona, Deshaun Watson, who, is questionable on how he's going to do for the rest of his career, has a decent matchup versus Philly, Dak Prescott, Justin Fields, and Jared Goff, all relatively easy matchups versus position. Any comments on this, Jim? Any thoughts? Anybody here that you'd probably sit regardless of the matchup?
yeah, I'm not trusting Will Levis, and I'm not trusting Andy Dalton, so I would not start them. The Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels game, the Washington-Baltimore game, that looks like a great game for both sides. I'm pretty excited about that game. Should be high scoring, and both these guys should do great. But yeah, Josh Allen, man, I've got a lot of concerns. He's not throwing the ball that much.
He's not.
Relatively ineffective, and I would say if you've got someone like a Brock Purdy or I don't know, maybe even like a Justin Fields. Justin Fields is playing Las Vegas this week. I'd consider it. And last week I benched Mahomes in favor of Baker Mayfield. I started Baker Mayfield in place, and guess what? It worked out great. I got more points out of Baker than I did out of Mahomes. So I think with certain players this year, like Josh Allen's just having a lot of problems. Doesn't have his wide receiver 1 anymore, doesn't have Diggs anymore. I think it's really affecting his performance. The other wide receivers are not stepping up the way you want them to, the way you need them to.
No.
It's a dangerous start. So
very dangerous. A lot of uncertainty. We'll get to that right now. Let's just go through the tougher matchups. Trevor Lawrence coming off a hot week, does have a tough matchup versus Chicago. Josh Allen, the second hardest matchup versus position versus the Jets. Baker Mayfield coming off 2 solid weeks is playing the Saints, a little tougher. Bo Nix coming off a hot week. He had that rushing touchdown, really inflated his numbers versus the Chargers. He's going to have a tough 5th hardest matchup versus position. Justin Herbert, another quarterback, just not throwing it. Him and Josh Allen, it's just not making sense to me this year. These guys are top tier quarterbacks in the NFL. Ultra elite, and you can make the excuse. And I'm sick of these excuses. Oh, they don't have a true wide receiver 1. Keenan Allen being shipped off for the Chargers, obviously, and Diggs no longer there with Buffalo. And you can say that is an impact, but if you're just not throwing, you're not making an effort to throw, you're not gonna get it done. And now we kind of knew this a little bit more with Herbert because Harbaugh likes to run the ball, but I didn't feel he had good running backs to get it done. They are getting it done decently, but it's almost like they're just relying on James Cook, Buffalo is, and they're just relying on the running game in LA, and it's really hindering the upside of guys like Ladd McConkey and Keon Coleman who just are not getting the ball. It's such a shame, James. Jim, it's such a shame, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still in on McConkey. I think he's getting really good volume. But yeah, I mean, it's like if your quarterback is throwing for less than 200 yards, it's very hard for those wide receivers to have a good week. They're just not going to be good. There's just not enough passing volume there. And these are guys that should be consistently getting 250 plus yards every single week. And they are neither one of them is doing it right now. So that's very concerning, and it impacts the wide receivers that they play with. So
Other guys that have tough matchups: Gardner Minshew, seventh hardest versus position; C.J. Stroud, eighth hardest matchup versus position versus New England; Jalen Hurts versus Cleveland; Aaron Rodgers versus Buffalo; Kyler Murray, Anthony Richardson. If he plays, I don't think he's going to play. I would assume. I think I haven't even looked at this. Are they rolling Flacco? Have you looked? I haven't looked, to be honest with you. I've got no stuff.
I have not heard anything about Anthony Richardson coming back this week, but
Yeah.
I can't speak definitively because I haven't been paying attention.
I think it actually helps the receivers if Joe Flacco plays still. Don't be surprised if Joe Flacco takes Richardson's job. Some people are saying. I'm reading reports here. Flacco, yeah, I think he should be. I think he should be starting this week. Either way, yeah, it's amazing how some of these older dudes are coming back and they're like just doing well, and it's just wild. I guess that experience is kicking in, and I don't think some of these quarterbacks like an Anthony Richardson are just that good. I don't think they're that efficient. But it's a tough position. That's why out of a population of 300 plus million in the US, you only have what, 20, 15 really, 10 really good quarterback. What do you like? It's so hard. It's such a tough position, Jim, and people are struggling. Everybody is.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're a nation of 300 million people, and yet we can only find about a dozen good quarterbacks.
It's wild.
And then you got the chaff. I mean, it's just like it's like that. I guess that's the best we could do. And even the good quarterbacks are really struggling this year. So
It's wild, man. So I'm going to pull up the running backs here. But before I do, Jim, make sure you guys do head on over to mybookie.ag. This is a site I use, a site I trust. Go place your bets right now. Use code FFC. You get 100% match deposit, Jim. So mybookie.ag is a place where I play. And listen to this. If you put 100 in, they're going to match it up to $1,000. So if you put 100 in, you get $100 a gameplay. If you put 200 in, you get another 200, on and on, up to $1,000. This is like playing with free money. So mybookie.ag is the site I use. Go enhance your game watching experience. And if you want my picks, guys, I've got the Counselor's Edge below. Get the Counselor's Edge where I deliver the straight up picks, the spreads, and of course my top 5 prop picks. So you get a lot of stuff there, man. And I'm doing a lot of research for these picks. So join the Counselor's Edge. But of course, the site you want to play on, the site that I'm on, is mybookie.ag. Let's make some cash together. It's going to be a lot of fun. Mybookie.ag, code is FFC. Go create an account. All right, so let's get to these running backs here, Jim. So when you're looking at the optimal matchups at each position, there we go. So this is the week by Jan. You have to do it this week, man. Like, you're looking at this 11 points last week, 11 points the week before, 13, just not getting it done. There was an excuse last week that his hamstring was bothering him. It's like, okay, well, why is Algier on the game-winning drive? Is that the hamstring, Jim? Did you watch that? Like, Algier's on the field when it mattered the most. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't see that, but I don't know why they keep putting him out on the field because he's not very effective. He's not an effective running back, and they're putting him on in goal line situations and stuff. It's like get Bijan out there. That's where he needs to be. So I don't know what's going on there. I mean, it's not like Algier is a startable asset either. Algier hasn't been doing anything.
No.
But
this is the week. Like, if there's a week to get it done, he's got to do it against Carolina this week. He's got to get it done. Period.
I mean, yeah, it should absolutely happen this week. Likewise, Breece Hall looks like he has a really good matchup this week against Buffalo. So
2 guys on the hot seat, literally.
Right.
Get done.
Right. I think he should bounce back.
Especially with the coaching change, I'm wondering how much of a hindrance the coach was, because you got the beast there. They don't call him the beast. You got to unleash the beast. Their running game isn't in sync. I don't know, man. They've been a disaster. And maybe you could blame it to coaching, or maybe Aaron Rodgers is not running the ball. I don't know what's going on over there, but hopefully whatever they have there, they're going to fix it, because they got the talent. Like, Garrett Wilson is no slouch. Aaron Rodgers has the experience, right? I think he's better than a Joe Flacco or an Andy Dalton. So if those guys are running offenses, worse offenses for that matter, you would think that Aaron Rodgers would kick it up a little bit, right? So I don't know, man. They got to do something there.
I was looking at memes earlier this week, and they were comparing the Jets through the first 5 games of last season versus this season, and it was the same. They had the same record, the same number of points scored, except one was with Aaron Rodgers and one was with what's his face? The Mormon kid, the guy from Utah.
Zach Wilson? No.
Yeah, Zach Wilson. Yeah, last year
Yeah.
was with Zach Wilson, and so it's like no improvement over what happened last year, and so I think that's a big reason why they fired him. I was actually kind of surprised that he was the first coach fired this year, but anyway.
It's been terrible. So other guys that have good matchups here, let's talk about it. We got Jahmyr Gibbs of Montgomery versus Dallas, good matchup. Josh Jacobs, Green Bay versus Arizona, decent matchup. DeAndre Swift, who's been pretty hot. He's got a good matchup versus Jacksonville. Najee Harris versus Vegas with Warren out. He's got to do something. Even still with Warren out, like good matchup. Najee's still gonna put up like 8 to 10 points. Like that guy is like the most frustrating running back of all time. Like, he's a big kind of burly guy. He's not a small dude. Like he's a strong guy on paper, but he just can't run. Like he's just always running into piles. You'll never see him for a breakout run. He's just so boring.
He's a plotter, but and again, he was a guy you got in like the 8th or 9th round. So it's not like he's killing you. He's actually probably a decent flex play on most weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, he'd be a good start this week.
Pollard, good matchup. Spears has just not done anything either. 12 points last week, 19 for Pollard. They are playing Indy. Mixon's banged up, so Cam Akers might be a go, but he's, again, not a guy that's really been exciting. But we do want to talk about this. Tank Bigsby has emerged. He did better out of the two, averaging, 7.8 yards per carry compared to ETN's like 2.8. Got more done last week, and now he's got a good matchup, decent matchup versus Chicago. Tank Bigsby, do you think that they're going to come out, Jim, and they're going to just roll Bigsby now? Or they're just going to be like, yeah, we're going to play the hotter hand. We want to win. I think they're going to start off with Bigsby. I think he's taking that job, and I think we're going to see it this week.
Yeah, I think that as long as he's playing as well as he has been, why wouldn't you put him out there? So, yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable with starting him this week.
Yeah, Bigsby could be the week that he's taken over that job. So those are kind of your optimal plays. Let's go over some guys that have it in tougher versus position. Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin. They've got it tough there versus the Chargers. Who else we got? Chuba Hubbard, who's been decent the past 3 weeks. He's been solid. Playing Atlanta, tougher matchups. We're going to come back down to reality. Are you sold on the Chuba train, Jim, or nah?
I don't know. I mean, Carolina's not a good team. They're going to be in a negative game script in this game. So I think that means they're going to move away from the running game probably pretty quickly. So I would not want to start him. And, also I see here, we were talking about the difficulty, the tough matchup that Josh Allen has. James Cook also has a really tough matchup. And so if they can't run the ball, that means they're going to rely on Allen to pass it. They can't pass. They got no passing game. I don't know. It seems like a really bad situation for Buffalo this week.
Yeah, I was going to get to that. So he's the 8th hardest versus position. James Cook versus the Jets. Chase Brown, you can see here, 9th hardest versus position. He kind of is emerging as well. Stevenson coming off a decent week last week. 2 weeks prior that, he was sucking. But Stevenson, 10th hardest matchup versus position. So Chase Brown, Stevenson, James Cook, Rico Dowdle, tough matchup here. We got Zamir White. I don't know if he's coming back or not. I don't really care. I've kind of dropped him. But him and Madison, 5th hardest matchup versus position versus Pittsburgh. They've got it in tough. So guys like that. Oh, yeah. Brian Robinson Jr. as well. Washington has a tough matchup versus Baltimore. So these are some names that you want to keep on your radar and say, hey, man, they might have it in tough. I may or may not want to consider starting them this week. But I still think if you don't have a better option, a guy like Chuba, he's been so steady. I know they're going to be down. I don't know. You almost feel like tempted. Like if you don't have a better option, I mean, you got to start your Chuba, right? You have to. He's been consistent, right?
Hey man, we're in bye week season right now, so there's several situations where I am starting really bad running backs. I'm not happy about it at all because my main running backs are on bye this week. So sometimes you just got to take what you got. And if you're in that kind of a situation,
a beggar can't be a chooser, right? You're begging me for like, hey man, I need like a running back, man. Like they're hard commodity to come by. So yeah. You got to go for it. Guys that have good matchups. Let's rip through it here. Amari Cooper versus Cleveland. Good matchup here. We got Jerry Jeudy as well. I don't know. He's Jerry Jeudy. He didn't do anything last week. Three points. So I don't know. He's just never going to do anything. Cleveland's kind of
he sucks. Why do you even have him on your team?
It's a disaster, man. Terry McLaurin, good matchup versus Baltimore. Not bad. 30. He's been consistent the past week. 17, 18, and 23 points past 3 weeks. You want to start him, and a big part of that is quarterback play. DJ Moore, good matchup versus Jacksonville. Again, look at Keenan Allen, 6 points last week, 5, and then 0 the week before because I think the injury. But it's like all these guys invested high draft capital in Keenan Allen. Look at him. Look at him. That's the Keenan Allen I always knew that he'd always be. It's just that he was force-fed last year, Jim. I've talked about this. He was not a good player. Like, he's good, but he's not outstanding. Like, everyone talks him up like he's such an amazing true wide receiver one. He's not. If he was, why is he putting up such garbage points? It's because he was force-fed last year, Jim. Force-fed by Justin Herbert, which I said he would be. And he was drafted, fourth round? People were drafting Keenan Allen like they're going to get the same Keenan Allen from last year. How's that working out for you? Look at this. Terrible.
Yeah, and he's not even the one on his team anymore. So, I mean, you've got that whole situation. But yeah, he's a 32-year-old wide receiver. So he's in the sunset. He's in the sunset years, and every year it's going to be a little bit worse. Yeah, so that's not a player you want anyway. So
Zay Flowers, right? Like, he had 2 bad weeks, right? And then he crushed it last week, 22 points. But the weeks prior to that, 2 points and 5 points. I don't trust Zay Flowers. You think that being the wide receiver one on the team, you would, but this is what happens when you got a running quarterback and a true workhorse running back and Henry on the team. Is Zay Flowers is he gonna be like this, volatile? Do you see him being up and down like this?
Yeah, he's probably going to be a little bit more volatile than you'd like, but I still think he's great. He's such a dynamic player and very exciting. And I'd like to see him get more touchdowns. I don't even know if he's gotten a touchdown this year, but he clearly is Lamar Jackson's favorite target. It's just a matter of time. So I think he's good to go.
CeeDee Lamb, good matchup this week versus Detroit, need to mention. And Marvin Harrison Jr. needs to pick it up as well in a good matchup. So all these guys, like we talked about running back with Bijan and Brees, and in this case, Marvin Harrison versus Green Bay, coming off a 6-point week last week. These guys have to step up, and we're talking fantasy football, because these guys are high draft capital people. You need to step up. Like, I need to do a video tagging these guys, telling them you need to step up. Like, there's no more excuses, Jim. I need to get this going. I got him in one league.
There's no excuses. You can't blame the quarterback. You can't blame the coaching. You can't blame the offensive scheme. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot.
You got Drake London as well. Good matchup versus position, and he's coming off a hot week. I do like him going into this week as well. Other guys we want to talk about: Calvin Ridley, another guy. Like,
that's a guy.
Jeez, what a disaster! I mean, 3 points.
Well, I blame Levis. I just don't think Levis is very good. But it's disappointing. He should be getting the most volume on that team, and he is not. The same thing happened last year. So I don't know what it is. I don't know. Maybe Calvin Ridley has some personality issues that are affecting the locker room and affecting his relationship with his quarterbacks. But the dude has the talent. Throw the ball. I mean, get the ball to him, because he's a big play guy. But yeah. It's very disappointing. I thought I had a slam dunk there, taking him in like the 7th or 8th round. I'm like, man, this is going to be an every week starter. And now I hate having to start him. So,
yeah. So Olave and Rashid Shaheed have a decent matchup, but is it Jake Herner, a 25-year-old, 23 4th rounder out of Fresno, and Spencer Rattler, I think, are the backups to Derek Carr.
I think Rattler's going to be the one that's going to start.
No, I heard Jake is Herner. I don't know. One of those two.
Really?
I don't know. One of those guys. I'm not even sure. I don't care, because I'm not starting either one of them. But
it's a downgrade anyway.
Either way, like, it doesn't matter who it is. It's a backup. So with any type of backup coming in, you've got uncertainty. So if you got Olave and Shaheed, it could work one of two ways. It could boom or absolutely bust. But if you don't have a better option, you got to start. And the matchup is favorable to whoever is back up there at this point. So I don't know, man. It's a disaster there when a quarterback gets hurt. But in the case of Carolina, like, it's an upgrade. When you get Dalton in, he's been helping. Flacco's been upgraded. Like, he's helped Alec Pierce and stuff like that. So sometimes these backups come in and sometimes do well, or they could completely.
I mean, the advantage is that nobody has any film on either of these backup quarterbacks, so they can come out and they can come out and do very well week one, because they don't know how they're going to play. That could be to the advantage of these unproven quarterbacks.
All right, let's go to the tougher matchups here. Michael Pittman, 15 points last week, not bad. So let's rip through it here. Michael Pittman, tough matchup, hardest versus position, him and Pierce versus Tennessee. Lad McConkey's got it in tough versus Denver. Garrett Wilson and those Jets wide receivers, tougher versus Buffalo. Cortland Sutton, as you can see here, fifth hardest matchup versus position versus the Chargers. Tough matchup here. Brian Thomas Jr., who I'm starting either way, regardless. He's been hot. He's been the one. And that's another thing that pissed me off this year, Jim. Everybody was pushing Christian Kirk. And remember the ADPs? Kirk was like coming off round like 5 or 6, something like that, right? I think Brian Thomas was coming off round 9 or 10. He was coming off like 5 rounds earlier. And I was screaming at people. I'm like, dude, just get Brian Thomas. He's the alpha. He's a first-round pick. Christian Kirk took the back seat last year. If you're a true one, you hold your wide receiver one position. You don't give it up when another wide receiver comes in. And everyone's telling you
Kirk's never been a 1 in my eyes. He's just not. He's better as a 2. So and he hasn't been bad this year. He's been all right, but yeah, Brian Thomas is very exciting. I love him. I know you've got him in our dynasty league. Let's talk trade because I want to get him.
I'm hanging on, baby. I'm hanging on.
How about I give you? How about this?
What's that?
Calvin Ridley for Brian Thomas Jr. That sounds like a good trade to me.
I pass on that. I pass on it. I'm gonna pass. It's a hard pass. So maybe send me an offer. Make it a little more. Make me an offer I can't refuse. You know what I mean? So that's definitely not an offer I could take there, Jim.
Right.
But again, the Concheapses had Christian Kirk, is what I'm saying, ahead. So anyway, it is what it is. The Concheapses are the Concheapses, right? All right, let's keep going here. A couple other tougher matchups here at wide receiver. Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman. I think Shakir probably going to be back. Keon Coleman just didn't get fed. Even with Shakir out, he had that 1 touchdown, just not getting the volume. They got to start throwing. I was hearing some talk that they are flirting with trying to get maybe even to Deontay Johnson or someone like that. Either way, I mean, they still got to throw to the guys they have. They're just not throwing. And even another situation with this is like everyone was saying Curtis Samuel was the one. Yeah. Okay. How's that working out for you? 1 point last week, 4 and 5 the week before. Even Keon Coleman's doing better, and he, 12, 8, and 9. But all a disaster, man. All disaster here. What can you do? And then Amon-Ra St. Brown, you got to start him, but he's got the 8th hardest matchup versus position here versus Dallas. And then we've got Debo and Ayuk, tough matchups, and then Mike Evans and Godwin, tough matchup. But you can't sit Mike Evans. You just can't do that. But yeah, just now who's got the tougher matchups. It's good to know.
Yeah, I think look at it. It's a tough matchup for Amon-Ra. I think it's going to be a good week for Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. I think they're gonna run the ball like crazy because they got the good matchup, and I think that's what we're going to see against Dallas. So
yeah, it's going to be interesting. 8th hardest matchup for Amon-Ra there, as we can see. So all right, let's move on to the tight end position here. We'll filter here by optimal matchups. And I was just telling my people in the fantasy front lines, if you haven't joined the fantasy front lines, make sure you guys do that to get direct access to me. So I was just talking to them in the group, and I put a message there. At this point, just start your best tight end. I don't think it really matters on matchup. You want your consistent guy. But if you want to factor in some matchups, here it is. So guys that have it in good. Taysom Hill, I think he's still banged up. He's used as more of as a running back anyway near the goal line. Maybe that's why he got banged up. Theo Johnson does have a good matchup here versus Cincy. Kyle Pitts does have a good matchup versus Carolina. Zach Ertz has a good matchup versus Baltimore. Trey McBride from Arizona versus Green Bay, good matchup, a must start. And then you got a bunch of these guys that I probably wouldn't start, like a Will Disley. Like there's certain guys. That's what I'm saying. If you got a good tight end, start them. Greg Dulcich, like you don't want to start him or Troutman, like from Denver. Like again, good matches, but you wouldn't start him. Brock Bowers, decent matchup as well. Cole Kmet, decent here as well. Now, the guys that have it in tough, just so you're aware, Dalton Kincaid, who, again, very high draft capital, Jim. Everybody was drafting Kincaid like 3rd round thinking that he's the one. And I tell people, like, he's not. They had Knox there. They had Keon Coleman. They had Samuel. They had Shakir. They have other guys. And everyone is kind of like honed in and saying, yeah, like Kincaid's the one. I'm like, no, man, like, way expensive for a tight end that's not proven. And as sure enough, Kincaid is busting based on ADP, as I said he would.
Yeah, I was never in on Kincaid, on the Kincaid hype. He really underperformed last season. I think he only got like 1 touchdown or something like that. He was just not a player I was looking at, especially at his early draft capital.
Right.
I don't know. there's been so many busts in the tight end position. And I've always just kind of faded the tight end position in my drafts. And I think that's a good strategy, no
Yeah,
matter what.
yeah.
I do think Sam Laporta is going to bounce back a bit this week. I want to see him do something, man. It's really disappointing how underwhelming he has been so far this
Absolutely.
season, based on what he did last year. And they're not utilizing it, but it looks like he's got a much better matchup than Amon Ross. So maybe he'll be the featured receiver this week. So that would be nice to see.
Hopefully for the sake of everybody that drafted him that early. And that's why I liked Laporta last year, 10th round, and I was getting him. And I'm like, all of a sudden the sheep jump on him and he's a second round pick. It's like, no, let's look for the next best guy, right? That's why I'm a Ferguson
Yeah.
guy this year. I was like,
Well,
I'm like,
and Bowers, man, Bowers has been colossally good this year. I mean, he's just been. I just wish I had more shares of him. And he
yeah,
was such an easy tight end to get. He was going like 9th or 10th round. That's perfect, man. What the people that got Brock Bowers are very, very solid at the position right now. So
well,
I'm jealous.
the knock to him was the quarterbacks. Like I didn't trust the quarterbacks. Another thing, Adams was there, but I didn't know that Adams would be disgruntled and not playing. And it's been crazy, man. Like, but anyway, yeah, it has been working out for Mr. Bowers. Other guys have it in tough. Again, let's wrap this up. Mark Andrews, who's been very inconsistent, had 2 0-point games. Finally had a 10-pointer last week. Good on him. Dallas Goddard has a tough matchup, 7th hardest as well. Couple other guys, Brenton Strange, who I started last week, did well for me. 9th hardest matchup versus position with Ingram being out. He's been benefiting. Gesicki also tough matchup. So I don't want to spend too much time on my tight end. Man, if you got a tight end that's getting it done, which is very rare, or putting up 10 points a week, just start him. Like this is not something to overthink. Start your tight end that gets it done. Period. Or
Yeah, like Tucker Kraft. I think he's a good choice this week too. That's a guy. It's a decent matchup, not a great one, but it's a decent matchup, and he's been doing really well. So that's one. Freiermuth, I think, also good option. Even though he's not getting the volume that I wanted to see him get, he's been effective. He got the touchdown last week, and they're playing Las Vegas, so seems like a good opportunity that he could maybe do it again. So
all right, so I'm gonna rip through the best defenses to start this week, and then Jim, if you want to chime in on which defense you like the best. But right now, man, the Colts, Eagles, Steelers, as you can see, versus Vegas, Texans versus New England, Bengals, 49ers, Falcons, Browns, Bills, Chargers. I do like the Chargers this week for a streaming defense. I do like Colts could be good unless Levis comes out, pulls something out. I do like Philly versus Cleveland. Cleveland just not looking the best. Steelers versus Vegas attractive as well. Which one really shines to you, Jim, this year this week at defense?
Well, I gotta say, I think the Denver defense is a good pickup this week. Playing the Chargers. Chargers have not been a high octane offense, not a high scoring offense at all, and so there could be some opportunities there. And even the Chargers. I'm mostly down to the point where I'm just streaming defenses right now. So it's just you just pick up the best matchup off the board. But that seems like a great game for defense. It seems like it's going to be a really low scoring game, probably with a lot of turnovers. That'd be good. That's what you want.
Just for the record, I got Denver listed according to the algorithm and stats. Denver has the 9th hardest matchup versus position, but hey, the Chargers have been
Really? That is
Yeah.
surprising. Their defense has been outstanding this year. Just absolutely shut down. So that very much surprises me against Los Angeles, which is not a prolific offense. They're not a team that can score a lot of points. So
Jim, you're absolutely right. I mean, like 16 points, 11 and 15 the past 3 games for the Broncos, and you compare it to some of these other defenses, man. Like if you look at, for example, the Bills defense, 5 -1 and 13. Like even Falcons 2-17 and 2. So Denver has been more consistent. Some of these guys, even this guy, right? Like the Bengals versus the Giants. Terrible. 1, 2, and -2 points, and they've got an easier matchup. So yeah, Jim's making a good point. Maybe Denver is a more viable start versus the Chargers than, let's say, Cincy versus the Giants, right? Like, so again, you got to kind of do your own research, dig into it. But this is kind of on paper, generic, based on matchup. And that being said, you guys got to make the executive decision. This is just the knowledge in front of you, and you guys, make your choices, right? To make the right decision. So, oh man, that's a lot of stuff, Jim. That was a big episode. Is there anything else we need to talk about here? I mean, it's just been a wild year. A lot of injuries, they piled up, and you just got to start your best players at this point, your target getters, your volume getters, right?
Yeah, between the injuries and the bye weeks now, it's man, it it thins out so quick. I can't believe the players I started last week. I did not want to start them, and
Yeah.
this week looks like it's going to be a very similar situation. But hopefully, some guys come back. I'd like to see AJ Brown back this week. Let's see if
Yeah.
that happens. Hurts really needs him, and that would really help the team. But we'll have to wait and see. So
Oh yeah, Spencer Rattler is strongly being considered to start. That's what I'm getting right now. So it's Spencer Rattler.
yeah,
Man, oh man.
I wouldn't trust it. But there's a lot of hype. I don't know why people are so hyped on Rattler. But I mean, it's not like he was a high draft capital player. But he's got a lot of buzz. I can't. I see him as like a Will Levis. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's maybe his ceiling is Will Levis. But like I said, we've seen the quarterback change, and the first week that quarterback comes out, they look great. Remember how great Will Levis looked in his first
Yeah.
game? He came
Yeah.
out mid-season. And he just blew up 4 touchdowns, right? Or something like that. And so maybe that's something that Rattler could do. That'd be really nice to see.
Or he might just get rattled. I might get
And
rattled.
then, but you'll see it this week, and then you'll never see it again. It'll never happen again. So
All right, guys, starts and sits. Fantasy football week 6. There you have it. Make sure you guys smash the tab, hit the thumbs up, drop your questions below. And Jim, man, that was a good one here. Lots of information. Thank you guys for your complete episode. You guys are all set.
yeah. Thank you, counselor. Good luck
Thanks.
out there, everybody. Let's win week 6.
Let's go, guys.